Hello everyone! Winter is finally over. This means that cars like this one, which are temporarily registered, can finally be driven on the road again after a very long period of being stored under a cover in the garage. In this case, as you can see, it's my friend Roy's Porsche Boxster, which he's lent me to bring to the channel, test drive, see how it drives, and tell you a bit about whether it could be a daily driver, if it's any good or not. And the truth is, yes to all. I can tell you right now that it is a fantastic car. You have already seen this car on the channel. We brought it in for a pretty thorough service. You already know it, you have seen it in detail, so we are not going to dive too deeply into the technical aspects. Let's test drive it, show you the interior, see how it's holding up after more than 20 years and almost 400,000 kilometers. I think it's about 370,000. As you know, it has the 2.7 liters Boxster engine with 228 horsepower, a 5-speed transmission, and as you can see, it's in very good condition. It's been meticulously cared for, it's almost an old-timer, and it's treated as such. This generation of Boxster shares its front end with its cousin, the 911, the 996. This one, in this case, is a Boxster 986. As you can see, this is the generation that was so criticized, they even started calling it the fried egg headlights. Over the years, I think our perception has changed, especially with these rear-style headlights, where the turn signal lens is white. The pre-facelift ones with the orange lens look a bit older, that's true. These headlights are xenon, and as I said, it shares them with the 911. That doesn't change the fact that they are quite rare and very expensive, so crashing it today isn't in our plans. Not today, not ever, of course. If we look at the side, we see a very clean, harmonious line with very well-achieved proportions. The wheels also contribute to this. In this case, they aren't the originals, but they do maintain the original Porsche design from that era. The car with the soft top also looks very well proportioned. It's not like those soft tops that look like, I don't know, spaceship. And as I was saying, the soft top folds away down here, as you could see in the maintenance video that was down here, which doesn't reduce trunk space when it's open or closed. It always has the same capacity. This soft top is electric, it opens in a few seconds with a button in the cabin. First, you have to unlock it with a lever above on the windshield frame, and then it can only be activated when the car is stopped and the parking brake is engaged. Let's move to the rear now, and there are three things that catch my eye and that I really like about this car. One is the taillights. As with the front ones, the indicator lenses are also clear, not orange like the pre-facelift models. Just like at the front, this really makes it look much younger. The pre-facelift models look much older. Another thing that really catches my eye is the center exhaust. In this case, it is a Boxster, not an S. So the exhaust has a single outlet, not a dual one, but I really like the shape of the outlet, which mirrors the shape of the bumper down here. It's a really cool detail. Also, the facelift added these two air outlets that help cool the exhaust, something the pre-facelift model didn't have. The last thing that really catches my eye about the rear of this car is the retractable spoiler. Yes, the car is over 20 years old and has an electrically retractable spoiler that is very useful for maintaining stability at high speeds. At 200 km per hour on the Autobahn, it's definitely not a bad thing to have. Since we are here in the back, let me show you the trunk in the rear. It's no surprise, you already saw it in the video where we did the maintenance. The engine is located back here. To access it, you have to open the soft top cover, put the soft top in the service position, and so on. You can see all that in detail in the other video about the Boxster. Today, I want to talk to you about the practicality of this car, and that includes the trunk capacity both in the back and in the front. The total capacity is 260 liters, which is more than enough for a weekend getaway for two. The trunk in the back is a little smaller, I think it's about 70 liters, which is sufficient for grocery shopping and such, and even for fitting a suitcase, gym bag, etc. and the larger trunk is in the front, so I am going to show it to you right now. This trunk is quite a bit bigger than the rear one, as you can see. It fits a lot more, it's much deeper. As I said, between the front and the rear capacity, there is more than enough for a weekend getaway for two. With suitcases, even better with backpacks, as they fit more comfortably. Up here you can also see the spare tire, which is a space saver, but it's always good to have one in case of an emergency. And by the way, you have already seen that I was opening the trunks with the key. There are also buttons inside so you can open them from the inside. Inside there is also some space to leave a few things, so let's go there and I will show you. As I was saying, there are many places to put things inside. We have the glove compartment, we have a space here for a mobile phone, we have an ashtray here which, well, if you don't smoke, you can leave some coins to pay the toll or whatever. We have spaces in the doors, and there is another small compartment back here where you can store a few things. Oh, and there is also a central glove compartment, of course. This interior was heavily criticized at the time because it was very plasticky. But the truth is that it has remained in very good condition to this day. I mean, it's plastic, yes, but very good quality one. Everything is perfect. I mean, this car, as I said, has 370,000 kilometers and it's in great shape. The leather seats are in incredible condition. The driving position is also perfect, I would say. The steering wheel falls exactly where you want it, and you can stretch your legs out. By the way, the accelerator pedal is hinged underneath, so you can modulate very precisely how much gas you want to give it. And the visibility is very good too. Of course, being a convertible, even better to the rear. The controls are exactly where they should be. They are all within easy reach. Climate control, the radio, everything you need is at hand. The radio in this case is an aftermarket 2-DIN unit with Bluetooth, Android Auto and all those features, which is really great for updating a model that obviously didn't have any of that back then. As I was saying, the driving position is very good. The gear shift lever is very close to the steering wheel. It's really good. And the locking mechanisms are quite mechanical. The feel, okay, sure, if you compare it, for example, to the Lotus I showed you on the channel, then obviously the Boxster feels like a normal car. But it's true that it has a very good mechanical feel. You can feel when the gears engage, making it very usable for everyday driving. The seats I mentioned earlier are in very good condition. They hold you very well, they keep you in position, and they are much more comfortable than the Recaro seats I have in my Corsa. Sure, the Recaro seats are sportier, they hold you more firmly in place and so on, but the ones in this car are perfect because they hold you well enough and you can take a trip without getting tired, so they really strike a very good balance there. Plus, it can accommodate people of all sizes. Whether you are small or very tall, you will fit in here. And what else can I say? Well, the space here for two people is more than enough. There is more than enough width for two people, so a weekend getaway is perfectly possible. As I was saying, there is a space for suitcases, luggage, everything, and the only thing you have to worry about is burning fuel. So, speaking of fuel, let's burn a little. Let's go! The sound is wonderful. Even at idle, you can feel the power of the 6-cylinder Boxster engine with its characteristic sound. You can feel it. As the revs increase, it changes from a deep sound to a high-pitched one.
What a wonderful machine!
It's a very characteristic metallic sound. All Porsches with Boxster engines have it, obviously. As soon as you hear it from the outside, you know a 911 or a Boxster is coming. It's very distinctive. The heel and toe downshift is super easy, thanks to the lower pivot point on the pedal. I'm going to tell you a little about the engine. As you know, it's a 2.7 naturally aspirated engine. You might think it doesn't have much power at low revs, but not at all. It has a lot of torque. Then, as you rev it, it generates that linear power. You can feel it rising, how the power increases and how it's being generated. Together with the sound, a true marvel. Really, it's a true marvel. The engine revs gaining speed and then you have to brake, but it's a piece of cake. The brakes, as you know, or as you could see in the video when we did maintenance, have rigid calipers on all four wheels, so the braking power is more than sufficient for this car. Besides, it's not exactly a heavy car. Porsche has always been known for having very good brakes, that they don't fade, and that is exactly the case here. They have very good bite, the pedal is firm, but it lets you perfectly manage how much you want to brake at any given moment, how much pressure you want to apply. They are great, really. And then, once you have braked the car, you have to lean it into a corner, and then it's very, very obedient. We might think, oh, rear engine, rear wheel drive, how dangerous. Not at all. It's super neutral. It's a car that you turn the wheel into immediately. Let's see now. I turn the steering wheel 90 degrees and practically do a full turn. It settles instantly, no body roll. While it's true this car has built-in shocks with springs that lower the ride height a bit, so it's stiffer than stock. The handling, like I said, it's fabulous. The weight is centered between the two axles and you can feel that instantaneous response. It's absolutely amazing. It lets you enjoy the ride. You don't have to drive like a maniac. You can, obviously, and you will still have a blast. But simply driving at a comfortable speed, you can really enjoy this chassis. A chassis with highly communicative steering, something we are sadly not so used to anymore. The hydraulic steering lets you feel everything the wheels are doing, and the assistance is just right, striking the perfect balance between firm steering and cornering, and light enough for everyday driving. Compared to the Lotus, it feels heavier, more bourgeois. But it's really fun car to drive. Not as radical, but very enjoyable. As I said, this particular car is over 20 years old, has 370,000 kilometers on it, and it runs incredibly well. It's a car I could easily have in my garage, honestly. I I know fuel consumption isn't something we should worry too much about for a car used only occasionally, but as I have been saying, this car could be perfectly used for everyday driving, and in that case, fuel consumption definitely plays a significant role. The average consumption under normal use is around 10 liters per 100 kilometers. It's a high figure, but not astronomical. However, it does prefer 98 octane fuel. As for maintenance, as you saw, it's something you can do yourselves, and in that case, the cost is very manageable. There are certain things to keep in mind, such as the IMS, which is always being discussed. People are quite afraid of it, and understandably so, but we also need to put it into perspective. In this car I'm showing you today, the IMS bearing was replaced shortly after purchase, with just over 300,000 kilometers on the clock. The one the engine had looked very much like the original, and according to its owner, who has researched the issue more than I have, the problem with the IMS bearing tends to appear in cars with very low annual mileage. In cars with more frequent use, like this one, the fact that the oil is always circulating within the engine prevents it from stagnating in the EMS bearing and degrading the grease inside, so the bearing lasts much longer. Anyway, it's the only weak point to check if you are buying one. So, if you are interested, start looking into them now, because the price of these cars is going up every day, and it's no surprise. Here it is, the poor man's Porsche. Who wouldn't want one if they were poor, huh? I am going to say a quick goodbye to make the most of the remaining daylight and go for a couple more drives before returning it to its owner, Roy. Thanks again for letting me have it. And well, tell me what you thought of the video, what you think of the condition of this car with almost 400,000 kilometers and over 20 years old. It's spectacular. And well, subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss the next videos, and I will see you soon with another video of another car or another project. We will see. Bye bye!